At the end of the day, life is full of challenges. And while it's easy to get caught up in the rhythm of mundane daily tasks, there's value in giving ourselves permission to feel both the frustration and the gratitude for where we are. Acknowledging our struggles doesn't mean we're weak or ungrateful. It means we're being honest with ourselves. And that honesty is the first step toward living with more intention, balance, and connection. Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. I'm your host, Billy Lahr. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are. The purpose of the show is to help you navigate the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. One way I do this is by providing a platform that gives people the space and permission to share their practical expertise and relatable life experiences that inspire you to become more clear, consistent, connected, and compassionate in pursuit of your own future goals. If you want to listen to some of my favorite conversations from the past, visit www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com/fan faves. That's where we post past episodes that generated the most buzz from our loyal listeners, like my conversation with Dr. Yolanda Holloway and Tiffany Bird. That's episode 42, Trash the Checklist, where we talk about how they both came to realize that their lives had become too much about crossing off tasks from a life checklist. We talk about the role their professions and education played in pushing them through tasks unconsciously, what their children have taught them about how they've navigated life so far, and what it means to be the author of your own story. This conversation is an all-timer for me because Dr. Yolanda and Tiffany are right, and they also provide excellent insight when it comes to raging against the machine of societal expectation. So be sure to check out that episode. Lately, though, I've been sharing how practicing intentional and mindful living over the last 10 years has helped me navigate the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of my own midlife crisis. Being more intentional and mindful has helped me process my anxiety in a much healthier way by reducing my emotional reactivity and impulsive behavior, which in turn has helped me improve my relationships and communication with others. So if you're ready to make a meaningful change in your life, visit www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com and download your free Jumpstart Your Midlife workbook. This workbook offers a comprehensive guided approach that will help you transform your midlife years with actionable steps, reflective exercises, and practical insights that will empower you to unlock your potential and build a more fulfilling life for yourself. These are the same skills, strategies, and resources I use in my own life based on years of research and experimentation to find a bit more calm and clarity amidst the chaos. So if you're ready to take the leap, go to www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com and take action now. But here's the deal. I don't have all the answers because there are still days I'm a hot mess. But by sharing my experiences as well as the experiences of others, my hope is that you'll see you are not alone in your experience. Because when we journey together and offer encouragement, we create a stronger, more connected community where everyone can thrive. Because at the end of the day, we'll always achieve more working together than we ever could alone. Speaking of being alone, I've actually lived the last 15 years of my life alone. No roommate, no partner, no nothing. That's not true. I did leave with the sweetest little dog in the whole wide world. Her name was Patches. Oh my gosh, I miss my little sweetie pie. We lived together for 10 years, but she wasn't much of a conversationalist, despite me talking to her like she stood me all the time. Then again, I don't think she would have really been invested in my ramblings because she was way more into naps and doggy stroller rides than swapping stories about how our days went. And yes, I was that guy who pushed my aging dog in a stroller around the lake because it was cute and she absolutely loved it. And more importantly, it gave us more time together as she got older. But aside from my four-legged roommate, living alone definitely has its perks. I didn't always mind it. I can be as loud or as quiet as I want to be. I can walk from my bedroom to the kitchen naked when I wake up in the morning. I can watch whatever I want on Netflix, or I can listen to my favorite Spotify playlist without negotiation. I don't have anyone telling me to turn down my Pantera or Slayer. So there's a certain joy in having your space entirely to yourself because you can arrange your environment however you want. And having stayed at numerous Airbnb accommodations while traveling the last 3 years, I've come to realize just how important this concept of feng shui is. But here's the thing, while solo living offers that kind of freedom, the daily grind of it all really started to wear on me. I'm an average cook with limited skill, and I'm just not that invested in getting creative with my meals. So I often just defer to whatever's easiest to make, which nowadays is microwaving rice, cooking up frozen vegetables, and tossing in some form of protein like chicken or galbi. That's pork for those of you that don't know what galbi is. After eating that, then it's time to do the dishes, and then I find other ways to entertain myself. There's no one to trade chores with, there's no one to split the load. And listen, over time, the monotony of those little routines, they all take on this new, heavier weight. Now, I can already hear single parents out there like, "Oh, boo, you live alone. Get over it, you whiny bitch." And I'm not looking for your sympathy, and I'm definitely not going to get it from any of you. So, what I'm trying to say here is I know that my struggles aren't unique, and there are many others out there who have it much, much harder than I do. I often think about you single parents out there. I can't even begin to imagine what that grind must feel like. A friend of mine who's a single parent once told me, "I love my child more than anything, but I hate being a single parent." And then I think about you caregivers out there, people who not only manage their own lives, but also carry the weight of caring for someone else in their family. Maybe it's a sibling with a disability or someone with special needs or an elderly parent. The emotional weight that you carry as a caretaker is not lost on me. In fact, one of the most special people in my life takes her brother to dialysis 3 times a week while also looking after her aging father who recently had a blood clot in his brain. And I just marvel at that level of resilience because hearing those stories humbles me. It makes me grateful for what's going well in my life and how fortunate I am to have a healthy family and to not have kids. But even though there are literally millions of people out there in these situations, something I've learned is that it's okay to acknowledge our own struggles without comparing them to someone else's. Just because someone else's challenges seem bigger doesn't mean that our challenges aren't valid. When we minimize what we're feeling, telling ourselves it's not that bad, we risk brushing aside emotions that deserve to be felt. That frustration and that loneliness is real. It doesn't make us ungrateful. In fact, I would argue that it actually puts where we can extend gratitude into perspective. But feeling makes us human. And I really want to emphasize that last statement, especially to all you bros out there, all you guys out there, because one of the biggest and most commonly overlooked challenges of living alone, especially for those of us who've done it for years, is touch deprivation. Studies show that human touch is a key component of mental well being. Physical contact, even something as simple as a hug, triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone that helps reduce stress and anxiety. And without regular physical connection, we can feel isolated. And over time, that lack of connection can impact our emotional health in profound ways. It's why I never hesitate to give my friends, both guys and girls, consensual hugs. I'm a hugger. I'll shake your hand when we first meet, but if we spend some quality time together, even if it's just for a day, I'm going to ask if I can give you a hug before we leave. And we can do a big bear hug or we can do a bro hug, whatever you're comfortable with. Just don't give me some half-assed side hug. That's one thing that honestly bothers me about living in Korea because hugging isn't really the norm here. And just to be honest, Koreans are terrible huggers. They're so delicate when they give hugs. Obviously, not everyone. I've received wonderful hugs from some of my friends here in Korea, but it's almost like some people are trying to keep an imaginary balloon between the two of you, like you're at some parochial school dance. Shout out Holy Family School. But oh my God, it's like I was doing a meditation a while back, and I actually started bawling my eyes out because I missed being hugged. And I remembered how great my former co-host, the always entertaining Matt Hazard's bear hugs are. He's a big dude. So he just wraps you up in his muscly arms and drips beard oil on you like it's Jerry Curl activator. But it doesn't matter because you just feel loved. And at that moment, I missed it. I missed it to the point of tears. And while I laugh about it now, the truth is consensual touch deprivation is no joke. For those of us who live alone, finding ways to meet that fundamental need, whether through social interaction or even something as simple as a handshake, can honestly make a huge difference in how we feel day to day. So, when we come back, I'm going to share 5 essential questions to ponder as you balance the responsibility of independence with feelings of isolation. And if that's got you feeling out of whack, be sure to get acquainted with our amazing sponsors. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. Welcome back to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. Today's episode is for those of you living life on the solo tip. Maybe you're a digital nomad, or maybe you're a solo entrepreneur. Maybe you're not solo at all. Maybe you just feel disconnected and isolated, or maybe there's an imbalance in shared responsibilities at home. So if that's you, it's time to ask yourself 5 essential questions. 5 Essential Questions is designed to help you reflect, learn, and grow as you navigate life's complex decisions. Each episode, I'll present 5 thought-provoking questions aimed at fostering self-awareness and personal growth. These questions encourage you to dig deep, challenge your perspectives, and unlock your full potential. If you want a digital copy of each week's 5 essential questions, just go to www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com and join my newsletter, just like this week's new Mindful Midlife community members did. Thank you to Chris Swanson, Charlie San in Spain. Oh, muchas gracias, Charlie. Cece Bowen, Youngchan Kim, Yunjae Chun, Jeannie Poon, and Brian Hawkins. Listen, all of you are the best around. Nothing's going to ever keep you down. If that doesn't make people sign up, I don't know what will. But each of them is getting my new Jumpstart Your Midlife workbook, which is a great companion piece to this 5 Essential Questions segment. Whether you're facing a major life transition or simply looking to gain clarity, these 2 resources will provide practical tools to help you move forward with confidence and purpose. All right, let's get to our first question. To ask yourself, how do you maintain your sense of autonomy while ensuring you don't carry every responsibility alone to the point of feeling overwhelmed or isolated? Maintaining my autonomy has always been important to me. I'm someone who values my freedom and likes doing things my way. I'm a bit particular. I've had several people suggest that I see someone about possibly having OCD or ADHD, but whether it's hosting events or creating podcast episodes or even developing courses for my community members, I take great pride in knowing I can set a vision, figure out a plan, and execute it. The problem is that because I'm so particular, I have a tendency to take on everything myself. And when that happens, I end up overwhelmed, frustrated, and sometimes even isolated. I've learned the hard way that independence doesn't mean I have to carry the entire workload. Over time, I've started recognizing when it's time to ask for help. For example, when I first started this podcast, I handled every part of the process: scheduling, recording, editing, promoting. And that worked up until it didn't. The editing alone was a massive time suck because a 1 hour episode usually took me 4 hours to edit because I'm incredibly sensitive to how a podcast sounds and is formatted. So putting all that time and energy into the details and minutia drained me creatively. So eventually, I hired a production team as well as a virtual assistant team from Fiverr, which is not easy for me because not only am I very particular about the quality of what I put out, but I'm also a total cheap ass. And I don't like to spend my money on things I feel I can do on my own, which is why I never valet. Valeting your car is such a scam. I would rather walk 10 blocks than valet my car. But I digress. Letting go of that responsibility, though, freed up time and mental energy to focus on the parts of doing this podcast that I love, like storytelling and connecting with each of you. By the way, side note here, if you're looking for high quality freelancers to help lighten your load, be sure to use the Fiverr code in the show notes. And if you'd like to work with anyone from my production team, shout out to Arslan, Awais, and Ron, let me know and I'll put you in contact with them. I also used to think I had to plan and execute every single detail of my soul share events, but I've started collaborating with the other event organizers a little more, which is, again, not easy for me. And it's probably not that much fun for them either. I was part of the planning committee for our Soul Share Halloween and Friendsgiving parties this year. And there were definitely some tense moments, but we were able to work together and pull off really wonderful events for our community, none of which I would have been able to do on my own. Special shout out to Isabel, who coordinated everything, including a specialized Friendsgiving menu with our host, Coat, located in historic Insadong, for those of you listening in Seoul, looking for a creative space to celebrate your next event. Give Julie over at Coat a call, and if you need their information, send me a message. And if you need their information, you can send me an email at billy@mindfulmidlifecrisis.com. Recently, I teamed up with my yoga teacher, Veronica, to co host yoga and meditation sessions for our Soul Share community. And that has been a thin slice of heaven. She and I work really well together, despite the fact she speaks very little English and I speak zero Korean, except for Hotokduge Chuseyo. Which, if you're Korean, hopefully that made you chuckle a little bit. But co-hosting with someone who brings a different skill set or just asking for help with logistics has reminded me to put more faith in what others can do and that people are willing to help more often than you think. Sometimes all you got to do is ask. Like my dad always says, the worst anyone can ever say is no. And when I share tasks or seek advice from someone I respect, it's not about giving up control. Yes, that's something that's very difficult for me. But what it's really about is recognizing that those people bring something valuable to the table. And when I trust others to contribute, it fosters a sense of connection rather than isolation. It also helps me stay focused on what really matters, whether it's creating meaningful content, maintaining relationships, or just simply enjoying the process. My productivity and creativity is strongest when I know I have the right people in my corner, whether it's friends, collaborators, or other trusted professionals. Leaning on them for support doesn't take away from my independence. It lightens the load so I can keep doing what I love without burning out. So take some time to reflect on practical ways to lighten your load, whether it's asking for help, sharing certain tasks, or seeking professional support. Remember, it's okay to be independent, but that doesn't mean you have to do everything on your own. Delegating when it makes sense isn't a weakness. It's what keeps autonomy fulfilling instead of burdensome. All right, let's get into question number 2. When do you find yourself most vulnerable to loneliness? And what proactive steps can you take to integrate community or social interaction without compromising your professional freedom? For me, loneliness creeps in whenever I feel overwhelmed, out of sync, or a lack of mental stimulation. Truth be told, I often felt this way the past 3 years as a digital nomad, and I've learned that I'm not alone. Over the summer, I surveyed over 60 digital nomads, and nearly 30% of them reported feeling isolated, disconnected, or lonely was one of the 10 biggest challenges they experienced as a digital nomad. One respondee who was roaming around the United States at the time said, moving around frequently and spending a lot of time in countries where I don't speak the local language have made it challenging to make friends. It's important to me to make friends who are living a similar lifestyle, but I haven't prioritized this over work and travel. Luckily, I travel with my partner, so it's easy to rely on the social interaction we have together. Another respondee who was in Mexico at the time said, there's been times where I've felt like I don't have enough time to create a meaningful relationship with people. Other times I'm just too burnt out to even try to interact and meet new people. And honestly, that's something that I experienced often as a digital nomad. But the key for me has been integrating social interaction into my daily and weekly routine in a way that doesn't feel forced or overwhelming. That's why I prioritize attending soul share events. And if I don't see something I like on the docket, I organize my own event, like the Johnny Birds and Friends event I hosted in Itaewon back in November. Those gatherings let me connect with fun, like minded people, share experiences, and feel part of something larger, all while still maintaining the freedom and planning I value. I can show up, engage, and when I'm ready, step back into my own space. I've also found that having a few key people in my life who I can connect with regularly, whether it's grabbing dinner, going for a hike, or just exchanging messages or ridiculous memes, makes a big difference. Special shout out to my friends Rihanna, not the singer, and Jihi for always making time to hang out and grab dinner with me. These are people who know me well enough to pick up where we left off, so there's no pressure to always be on. It's about quality, not quantity. And these connections help me feel grounded without compromising my independence. Ultimately, it's about balance. I need my solitude to recharge and feel centered, but I also recognize the importance of community in combating isolation. By weaving social interaction into my life in a way that feels organic, I'm able to protect my personal freedom while staying connected to the people and experiences that bring meaning to my life. Like I said, it's a balancing act, but it's one that helps me feel less alone and more in tune with the world around me. So, consider how to create space in your routine for activities or people that combat isolation while preserving the autonomy you value. Essential question number 3 asks, what strategies can you use to navigate moments where managing every part of your life by yourself feels exhausting or solitary? Honestly, for me, this just comes down to having routines. Structuring my day by the hour might seem restrictive, but it actually provides me with more autonomy because it allows me to see where I have time to tackle certain tasks. Most Saturday mornings, I stuff my clothes into the washing machine and then head out to Starbucks just down the road with my computer and planner to tackle podcast tasks like writing scripts or writing my newsletter or making Canvas slides or posting content to social media just so the algorithm can bury it and no one ever sees it. If you're following me on Instagram, do me a favor and just like something on there that like this video. Like this video because I want to see if the algorithm picks it up. I want to see if it makes a difference if a bunch of people who follow me on Instagram like this one video and then it goes viral. So that's my one favor. It's my one favor to ask. This is the only video you have to like. Even if you don't follow me on social media, even if you don't follow me on Instagram, give this one a like. LinkedIn too. If you follow me on LinkedIn, if you're watching this on LinkedIn right now, hey, how's it going? It's really nice to see you. Would you please give this a like? Because I want to see if that disrupts the algorithm in some capacity. Anyway, When I get back to my apartment, I fold and hang my clothes and then relax for a while before making plans with friends for the night. On Sundays, I usually wash my bedding and pillow sheets while I'm at the gym. And during the warm months, there's usually a soul share event going on. But if there isn't, I tune in to how I'm feeling and set an intention for the day. Sometimes that intention on a Sunday is simply to relax and do absolutely nothing. But I'm also not much for sitting inside my tiny studio apartment when the city is hustling and bustling outside and calling my name. Besides, there's always something going on in Seoul, and usually it's free. So while I'm here, why not make the most of it, right? For me, the most isolating part of my day is eating alone. I'm not a great cook, and truth be told, I really don't know how to cook Korean meals using ingredients I'm not familiar with or can't read. Basically, I make the same peanut butter and jelly oatmeal breakfast every morning and cook the same meal every night: frozen vegetables, microwavable rice, and chicken and galbi. I'm sure you've heard that anecdote about Steve Jobs wearing the same outfit every single day to reduce decision fatigue. That way he could save his mental energy for more important creative decisions. And for me, establishing routines is what helps me reduce my decision fatigue. Since I know what's coming when, I don't feel so overwhelmed. And I allow myself enough flexibility to do what I want when I want, to break from routine so I keep things fresh. So now it's your turn. How can you structure your day or your week in an intentional, consistent, and disciplined way so you're able to foresee the mundane tasks that need your attention while also allowing yourself the flexibility to recharge and do what brings you joy? Question number 4. When was the last time you reached out to someone who might be feeling a similar sense of isolation? And how can you be more intentional about creating or joining supportive communities? All things being equal, I know I could do a better job of reaching out to people who might be feeling isolated or overwhelmed. And even just thinking about this question reminded me of someone I need to check in with, so I'm going to do that right now. And you know what? It's still early in the year, so hey man, happy new year. What's new with you? How are things? And send. And look at that. That's all the longer that needed to take. That was like 10 seconds. It's as simple as, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Like, you have an open invitation if you haven't reached out to somebody. And I think this episode is going to come out in February. So reach out to them in February. It's still Happy New Year in February. It's still Q1. You can ask them, "Hey, how's the new year starting off?" It's just that simple. A text could really open up a much needed conversation for someone. For me, the challenge is that I too can become so recluse that reaching out to someone or even responding to a message feels exhausting. I'm not someone who particularly enjoys small talk. I prefer to have deep, meaningful, thought provoking conversations. That's why I host this podcast. But I also know small talk has a way of inviting people to share what's going on. And when that happens, all you got to do is listen, which is not something men do all that well. I'm just as guilty of doing the whole listening to someone share what's going on with them and then immediately coming up with solutions to their problem. I've tried really, really hard to stop doing that, but it is a work in progress. It's kind of been a default for a long time. So I'm trying to rewire, I'm trying to shift my mindset around that. And one way I've done that is by moving away from this whole "what problem are you trying to solve" sales approach, which I hate. I hate that question. What problem are you trying to solve? Here's what I'm here to do. I'm here to promote this idea that together everyone achieves more. It's a community approach where people feel connected, heard, and supported by others. I'm not telling you that you have a problem. I'm just saying, hey, there's a community here. We're a lot of fun. We have some good conversations. why don't you come and hang out with us? We're pretty fun. We're pretty cool. And like I say at the beginning of each show, I'm not claiming to have everything figured out. I'm not far from it. There are still days when I'm stumbling my way through life. But by opening up about my experiences and sharing the stories of others, I hope it serves as a reminder that none of us are truly alone in what we're going through. When we come together, offering support and encouragement, we create a space where we can all reflect, learn, and grow. So take time to reflect on the power of shared experiences. Think about steps you can take to invite connection, whether by organizing small gatherings or simply offering a listening ear. Our last essential question of the day is, how do you balance gratitude for your current situation while also acknowledging your own struggles without comparing them to someone else's or minimizing what you experience? So, some people aren't going to like this response, but balancing gratitude while also acknowledging my own struggles becomes even more nuanced when I consider the role privilege plays in my life. But if we're going to answer this question honestly, then we need to have an honest discussion about privilege. Yes, I'm a straight white American male. I am overflowing with privilege, and I acknowledge that. And that privilege has made it much easier for me to live and work abroad and have so many other experiences like pursuing creative projects like this podcast. But I'm also not going to feel guilty about that anymore. Because while it's important to stay mindful of that privilege, it doesn't mean my struggles aren't real or valid. Just because I have certain advantages doesn't mean I don't face challenges that affect my emotional and mental well being. What I've learned is that acknowledging privilege isn't about feeling guilty. It's about being aware of how those advantages shape my experiences while also allowing space for my personal struggles. It's possible to recognize privilege and still feel overwhelmed, lonely, or stuck. The key is not letting anyone, myself included, invalidate my feelings by saying, well, it could be worse. Yes, it absolutely could be worse. But that's not your conclusion to come to. That's my conclusion. It's no different than these people who say everything happens for a reason. Man, fuck you. All the people who say that, I hate that saying, everything happens for a reason. I can't stand when people say this because you think you're helping, but you're not. You're invalidating the other person's experience and you're preventing them from processing through the whole range of emotions that come with that experience. Besides, life doesn't always happen for a reason. Sometimes shit happens, but everything you've done up until that moment has prepared you to take the necessary action. So when it comes to balancing gratitude with honoring the challenges I'm experiencing, I approach it with curiosity. I ask myself, how can I practice gratitude without minimizing what I'm going through? How can I use the privilege I have to uplift others without ignoring my own needs? This isn't about picking one or the other. This isn't a zero-sum game. It's about holding both truths. Two things can be true at the same time. I can appreciate the opportunities I've been given while also still working through the hard parts of my life. Ultimately, this balance comes down to self-awareness and intention. I strive to stay grounded in gratitude, stay honest about my struggles, and remain mindful of the privilege I carry, all without letting guilt cloud my ability to show up fully for myself and others. Because privilege isn't something to feel bad about. It's something to recognize and use responsibly while still giving yourself the grace to experience life's ups and downs authentically. At the end of the day, life is full of challenges. And while it's easy to get caught up in the rhythm of mundane daily tasks, there's value in giving ourselves permission to feel both the frustration and the gratitude for where we are. Acknowledging our struggles doesn't mean we're weak or ungrateful. It means we're being honest with ourselves. And that honesty is the first step toward living with more intention, balance, and connection. If you enjoyed this week's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a future episode. If you're an Apple listener, you can do that by clicking the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. If you're a Spotify listener, click the follow button and then click those 5 stars under the cover art to show the show some love. I would also greatly appreciate it if you would share this episode with the people in your life who may be feeling a little lonely, a little isolated. And if you do that on Instagram or LinkedIn, don't forget to tag me, bro, because sharing is caring. If you're feeling really generous, please consider making a donation to the show. All you got to do is click on the donate button in the show notes, just like Hillary Cotter in Washington, D.C., who simply wrote, "Billy, you are awesome." No, Hillary, you. You are the one that is awesome. Your contributions help me keep this show running smoothly and without interruption. In fact, if every subscriber donated just $10, I'd be able to afford the upkeep required to maintain this podcast. So if you find value in the interviews and personal stories shared on this program, please consider showing your support, and you too can get a shout out like Hillary did in this episode. If you want more free resources to help you reflect, learn, and grow, consider subscribing to my weekly newsletter at www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com. Or if you want to keep up with my travel adventures as well as life in Korea, you can follow me on Instagram at mindful_midlife_crisis. This is where I share my travel tips, experiences, and recommendations so you don't feel so overwhelmed when planning your next big trip. I've also added a new feature in the show notes where you can text me your questions, comments, and show ideas, so don't be afraid to shoot me a message there. If you're interested in collaborating on a future project together, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always looking to connect with amazing people with amazing life experiences and stories to share. Don't forget to check out this week's sponsors. I'm not here to solve all the world's problems, people, but I'm constantly building my network so I can provide more resources for you to live your best life. When you support those sponsors, you also support this show, so don't be afraid to reach out to any of them. Or if you'd like me to make an introduction, shoot me an email at billy@mindfulmidlifecrisis.com. Finally, let me leave you with this. When you're in the midst of a midlife crisis, remember that progress is never linear. Our growth looks more like the stock market. Some days we're up, some days we're down, and we may not reap the benefits for a while. But if we play the long game and continue to invest in being consistent, disciplined, patient, compassionate, and connected to others, you'll see that that investment in yourself will pay huge dividends as you navigate the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. So with that, this is Billy. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. May you feel happy, healthy, and loved. Take care, friends.